Boom, what's up, Familia Dayspring here, back to Power of X-Men. My apologies for the delay in getting some new episodes out to you on my laptop. Shockingly, my laptop broke. And I thought I was going to get a new one, but actually I have Apple Care because the last three laptops I have lost in the last 5 years. And when I say lost, I mean they've broken, they've malfunctioned. I have the worst luck with laptops. But I got Apple Care and it turns out it was under warranty. So they had to send the laptop away. And of course, I was on the road and I finally got it back yesterday. So my apologies. We have a couple interviews that we are going to be airing in the next couple of weeks, but I woke up this morning and it's the day after my birthday. And yesterday, the only thing I wanted to do for my birthday was sit in bed, eat Domino's pizza, and play Marvel Cosmic Invasion, which is so good. We'll have another episode on Marvel Cosmic Invasion. But it was Wednesday, and I'm like, oh man, it's Wednesday, and I really want to read a good comic book, right? That's just part of the ritual that has been my life for the last 4 decades. And I was like, okay, let me see what published. And Wiccan, The Witch's Road, or Wiccan Witch's Road, excuse me, no, The Wiccan Witch's Road, by Wyatt Kennedy and art by Andy Pereira. And I read it, and it was so good, Familia. And I kind of wanted to do an episode talking about how good it was. I already slid into Wyatt Kennedy's DMs telling him how good it was and invited him to be on the podcast. So let's see how that works out. But I really wanted to talk about, and I say this all the time on Power of X-Men, when something's good, I want to make sure everyone gets really excited for it and they go out and they read the comic. So let's do a quick review and breakdown of the comic. And then I want to talk about why this comic is so important and sort of my expectations for this comic, as well as the history of Wiccan in the Marvel universe. It's not as clear as many people think it is. And a lot of the answers we've gotten with Wiccan, how he became Billy, his relationship with Wanda, a lot of it was streamlined thanks to WandaVision and Agatha, if you can believe it, because those comic books are very nebulous at best. And this is always my issue with a lot of things. Insert a rant here, which is with the MCU recently, it's like people take for granted that a lot of stuff didn't really happen in the comic books in the way it does on the television show. And the comic book don't always give you clear-cut answers, and a lot of things are still a little bit of a question mark. So we'll dive into Wiccan's history, but first, let us definitely chat about Wiccan Witch's Road, which I want to just say straight up, Andy Pereira's art is so good. I swear, Familia, one of the things that I love about an artist is that they're able to convey the story. And, that's easier said than done. I'm not artistically inclined with drawing in any way, shape, or form. I can barely draw, anything. So I'm always in awe when I just see anyone who can put, pen to paper kind of deal or, draw lines and stuff like that. But to see a narrative form, and I always think to myself, man, if I was an artist, how would I know to do this angle? How would I know how the facial features look? Wiccan and Hulkling look so incredibly distinctive here. So I just want to give props to the art. The art is fluid. You really do get an idea of scope when we get to the end of the story, when we get into the witch's house, who lives in the West. I absolutely love that. Baba Yaga, who apparently has appeared in Marvel Comics before, but she is of Slavic descent. She's like Slavic lore. Um, I was just blown away by it when the house like levitates and it has its like, like bird feet. It was really, it was lovely. It was, again, it made me believe that this house could actually get up and walk away. So I'll dive into the story, but I just want to give the props to the artist because really, truly, we talk about this all the time. Graphic novels, comics, it's a marriage of words and art. And the technique of putting the story together from the artist's perspective, again, they're conjuring something out of nothing. And they're getting a script from the writer. And, in this case, the script is really good. So, how do you match that with the art? Andy Pereira did such a great job. And I just want to give him all the flowers because it's very fluid. It's fun. I think that's also another thing. And this is in the writing as well, but the art is just fun. There's this one scene where Wiccan is holding a sword and he goes, "Come on, then. I'm not afraid of you," to the demon he's fighting. And it was just so well done. Like, I'm like, that's Wiccan with a sword. That is Wiccan with a sword. I'm so excited. And similarly, when the witch, it's a really funny scene actually, when Baba Yaga decapitates Billy. It's not as grotesque as it sounds. It's funny. It's all magic. Like he's just a talking head, right? It's like in Charmed when they did the Sleepy Hollow episode, and it's the Charmed one's heads on like a table. It's kind of like that, except she's holding Billy's head and she just put his head on a plate. It's really funny. But the art is it's fun and it's good. And again, it's not grotesque by any means. And Billy's like, "What did you do to me?" And like the sheer panic in his face. It's fun. And I don't want to say it's campy, but I want to say that it's lighthearted in a way that's still good and meaningful. And that's something that I think a lot of modern comics are missing. If you tune into this podcast, I'm we're very critical here at Power of X-Men because we want comic books to be good. We are of the belief that if a comic book is good, it translates into brand new action figures based off of that comic. It translates into a cool video game based off of that comic. It translates into a good animated series. It translates into a good MCU storyline, adapted from that very good comic. So first and foremost, I always think the source material needs to be good. I don't like the MCU influencing the comic books. The comic books should always do their own thing. And I wish someone at Marvel would just get that, right? I In the past, I would have succumbed to whatever official Marvel perspective or statement has been out there. Right, which is saying, well, no, we have studies that show that if they go watch Guardians of the Galaxy, they go to the comic book store and they buy comics, that sees the MCU reflected in it. I'm going to push back on that. I've always given Marvel the benefit of the doubt, but as I've been doing this podcast, as I've peeked behind the curtain, as I've gone behind the scenes tea and all that stuff, I can assure you, I don't think Marvel knows what they're doing all the time. And I think they are very mistaken if I don't think they have a pulse with their readership. And I don't think they understand that the comic books need to be good, that the comic books are ground zero. Yes, comic books are not going to make as much money as an MCU film. I want to be very clear about that. I'm fully understanding that a multi-billion-dollar Avengers franchise in the MCU is not going to sell the same as a comic book. However, that multi-billion-dollar franchise exists because there were good comic books to begin with. And because these comic book readers like myself go to watch these MCU films and we're like, holy shit, they're so good. And we start telling our everyday, air quote, normie people, like, oh, you need to check out the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. You need to check out X-Men 2 because it's based off of this comics, based off of God Loves Man Kills. You need to read Infinity Gauntlet story because that's what Infinity War is going to be based off. You need to have that kind of excitement. So it should just start with the seed, right? A seed turns into a big old tree eventually, right? That's exactly what the comic book should be. That's what one issue of the comic book should be. It should be a seed that is so good it will eventually sprout out into a big, beautiful oak tree, which in this case, I'm comparing it to an MCU film. Anyways, that's all to say that Wiccan Witches Road is a good seed. I am so happy to say that, Familia. Oh, you don't understand. I wish I wish I had so much money that I could buy all of the issues of this that exist and give them out for free to anyone who would ask, because I think everyone should read Wiccan Witches Road. And again, props to Wyatt Kennedy for a wonderful script. It's really hard to deliver a script for a character like Wiccan who has a very complicated history. Again, talking about it in the comics, I think in the MCU, Wiccan's history is very streamlined, especially thanks to that Origins episode with Agatha. But in the comic books, if you're a comic book reader, you're going to pick that up and you're going to be lost. You know what I mean? You're going to be like, wait a minute, what? Mephisto? Who? Like, where's Mephisto? You know, we need more Mephisto in the MCU. Sacha Baron Cohen is doing a great job in Ironheart. Loved him very much. But anyways, he should have been in WandaVision and he should have been in Agatha. Oh, but anyways, all right. We'll save that rant for another day. Anyways, so honestly, the issue opens up with a really quick origin story for Wiccan, which is, you know, some people say that he was conjured out of Mephisto's soul or of the love of Wanda and Vision. No one's really sure, but he came to be a warrior and he found his love Hulkling, and Hulkling eventually became the king, the emperor, excuse me, and then it all came crashing down. And that's where we pick up. We pick up with Wiccan and Hulkling crashing down. They have no idea where they're at. They theorize they're somewhere in Eastern Europe. Billy's magic isn't working. Hulkling is very injured, and so he has to carry Hulkling through the woods. They come across a town that has been ransacked by demons and very awful, terrible, but yeah, demons. And they find a little girl, and the little girl's, I believe it's a doctor in the town. I'm not sure if it's her father. Let me just see here. It doesn't really specify, but he says he's a doctor, and he says that there's a witch who lives to the west of here. And Billy and Hulkling go to visit the witch, and that witch is in fact Baba Yaga. And Baba Yaga is like, listen, you want your magic back, and I need you for something to help save this world. And we're going to go to the witch's road. And so the house that Baba Yaga lives in sprouts little like chicken legs, and it presumably rushes to the witch's road. So it's very cool. So that's a story in a nutshell. But one of the things that I love about this is that we get to really truly see Billy and Hulkling, Wiccan and Hulkling, as a couple in the face of a very dire situation. We also get some references to, you know, their time as a young Avengers and stuff that like makes these characters feel fleshed out and they lived in this world. Like we're talking about the time that Kate Bishop and Billy went camping and there was a strict no powers rule, and she sprained her ankle, broke her ankle, something like that, and she refused to be teleported to a hospital. And Billy was saying this because he's learned survival instincts from that trip with Hawkeye. And Hulkling and Wiccan look at each other and they're like, yeah, Kate is borderline psycho, isn't she? It was a laugh out loud moment. Similarly, when they're told that they have to go see the witch in the West, I love saying that, but the Baba Yaga, they, you know, Billy's like, oh, I'm the Scarlet Witch's son. And they kind of discuss, they're like, yeah, but does everyone know who the Scarlet Witch is? And it turns out the Baba Yaga absolutely does. And there's this wonderful ongoing mystery of why did Billy lose his powers? Why did those powers that course through his vein abandon him? And what does the Baba Yaga want from Billy? Did she orchestrate everything to bring him here? All very great questions to set up for a first issue. Again, one of the things that the script does really well is the pacing. We don't dwell too long on something, right? And it's smart enough where it answers a lot of the questions that you probably have. You're like, okay, well, why don't they just use their cell phones? Well, where they landed, there are no cell phones, so they can't call for any heroes. So the doctor says, if you want some help, you have to go see a witch, you know, who's towards the west here, which is a Baba Yaga. And the Baba Yaga has appeared in Marvel Comics before. She fought with magic. She fought with Captain Britain. She is from Slavic mythology, and she's a witch who often guides people. So again, I always say this right up to your audience, and that's exactly what Wyatt Kennedy did here, right? Like you just knew there was a little bit more to these characters, a little bit more symbolism here. And you inhale it as a reader. It's very well done. Again, the pacing, the voices of the characters, the art, Familia. If you have an opportunity to, I know, we live in a world where tariffs and, cost of living is just so insane. I definitely recommend you go and you read this. I would not be this excited. I'm going to be tuning into this comic book every issue that comes out. I'm so excited. In fact, and again, it makes me excited for Wanda's role as Sorcerer Supreme. Can't wait to pick that up. There's some adjoining covers that I'm really excited for. I believe it's Strange, Wanda, and Wiccan. Love that so much. Is Wanda now just Sorcerer Supreme? Is she still Scarlet Witch? I don't know. We'll find out when we read the first issue. Now, I can tell you this reads like a YA book. So don't expect something of like Jonathan Hickman, Grant Morrison level, right? But this is a fun like YA book. And this is a book that I hope a young reader eventually picks up and their love for Marvel continues forward. This is definitely one of those issues that I can see like lights a fire in someone. So I recommend this book 100%. Now, you're probably wondering, well, okay, that's great, Dayspring. There are a lot of other great Marvel titles that you don't talk about that are of Avengers, caliber, of Agatha or whoever, and you don't talk about them. Why are you talking about Wiccan? Well, we first of all, thank you for asking that. No one did, but um, the reason why I think we want to cover this for Power of X-Men is because of Wiccan's ties to the Scarlet Witch. And the Scarlet Witch historically has been a mutant. That, of course, was retcon. You know how I feel about that. We've ranted about it endlessly on this podcast. Go check out our AMA episodes. Wiccan's identity as a mutant has never been explored in the comic books, right? So you're probably wondering, like, okay, well, is he a mutant? Because Wanda's not a mutant, neither is Pietro. Like, why? And Vision, Vision is a robot. Well, we asked Jordan D. White, who was the editor of the X-Men comics at the time, a couple years ago, if Wiccan and Speed were mutants. And he told us, well, Wanda created them at a time when she believed herself was a mutant. So that follow that logic, they are in fact mutants. And the reason why we asked that, because I agree, we would have dismissed them as not being mutants because they're not, they wouldn't have that kind of lineage. But in Children's Crusade, which in fairness is before the retcon, Wiccan is technically a mutant. Even though Wanda is not a mutant, in Children's Crusade, Emma addresses Speed and Wiccan as mutant children. And don't they want to go with Auntie Emma to the Xavier Institute? So we followed up on that scene with Jordan D. White when we had him on the podcast. And he, in fact, confirmed that they are mutants. So we are very invested in Wiccan and Speed and them being mutants. Of course, we've seen them on Krakoa. Of course, Speed has dated Prodigy. It's very established, very well-known mutant. So we want to make sure we continue to see them part of the mutant community, right? Again, I don't want to go on any rants here, but I don't understand why they don't get pushed as mutants as well, given the popularity of the X-Men. And I don't understand why they don't retcon the retcon and make Wanda a mutant again, right? I feel very strongly about the mutant gene in Wanda and Quicksilver. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver should be mutants, period, end of story. And again, I've discussed this in other episodes, but for those of you who are tuning in for the first time because of this Wiccan review, Magneto not being the biological father of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, I can care less about because I think found family, adopted families, blended families are equally as powerful as blood families, for better or for worse. You have those complicated family dynamics. My main quarrel was when they made Wanda and Pietro non-mutants, when they said they're not mutants, they also just said, okay, well, Magneto's not their father then, and therefore they have no relationship with Magneto. That was the editorial mandate. It wasn't until the Hellfire Gala that we started to see that they did have these family ties, and that's fine as long as those family ties are present, whether they are adopted, blended, biological. I don't care. You just need to have the family ties between Magneto, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver, and we're already getting that in the comics. So, however they want to handle the details of their family, I can care less about. What I care the most about is that you show that they have that family dynamic. And the thing I will rant about and die on the hill about is that they are mutants. Wanda and Pietro are mutants. End of story. And that way, Wicked and Speed are mutants, and I want to see that fully explored in the future. And again, I don't want to add an expectation, but hopefully this will add to that story. Hopefully, we haven't had it. We've never had that story. I think Magneto has only met Billy and Tommy like once. I mean, I guess if you're counting them as babies, a couple of times, maybe like twice, but it's in Children's Crusade. I want more. I want more. I want more. I wanted to give some context for Wiccan in the comics because his origin story is a little bit all over the place, and I'm hoping this series will shine a light. I mean, I don't want to put any expectations on the series now that I'm thinking about it. Sorry, Familia. This is what happens when you work without a script. I have like 5 bullet points here. But this is what happens when you work without a script. You kind of like trail off. I don't want to give the expectation here because I think this is just a good story, period. But I want to talk about, where Wiccan came from and some of the unanswered questions. So for those of you who don't know, Wiccan first kind of came into being as a character in the second volume of Vision and Scarlet Witch, specifically issue 3, when they were fighting the Salem 7. And Wanda ended up having to channel the magical energies of the entire town of witches and warlocks that she was at. And she funneled that power through herself and away from the Salem Sevens. And in the process, Agatha kind of like appeared to Wanda. Agatha was dead at this point. And she said that Wanda needed to use her power properly. And the Scarlet Witch, Wanda had no idea what she was referring to when this like massive dose of energy just like supercharged her hex power. And at the end of the issue, we find out that against all odds, that she was pregnant with Vision's baby. And again, this is all in Vision and Scarlet Witch, the second series, volume 3. And I want to shout out UncannyXmen.net for helping me remember and piece all of this stuff together. I've said this before, if you go back to old episodes of Power of X-Men, when we were covering WandaVision is based off of volume 2 and volume 1 of Vision and Scarlet Witch. There was a little bit of like this this little error that Kevin Feige said that it was kind of like based off of the Vision series, like by Tom King. No, 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 no. Volume 1 and volume 2 of Vision and Scarlet Witch. And so in volume 2, issue 3, that is when Wanda finds out that she is pregnant. And they eventually have their Thanksgiving I said Thanksgiving episode. Their Thanksgiving issue where Magneto shows up And it's all a really happy family time for Wanda and Vision. And even Toad, while Wanda is like 9 months pregnant, even Toad like shows up because he used to be in love with Wanda when they were on the Brotherhood together. And Toad is like, oh, what happened to you? You got fat. And Wanda's like, I'm pregnant. Stuff that would not happen in comics today, right? But what I'm trying to give to you is that they had this zany, wacky adventure while Wanda was pregnant, and she eventually gives birth to twins, and it's Thomas and William. And unfortunately, this happy era of Wanda's life is incredibly short lived because the Vision eventually gets disassembled. He becomes White Vision, right? He's rebooted. He's cold. Wanda goes to hug him, and he has absolutely no emotion with her. And she becomes incredibly jaded with the world. And she finds out from Agatha and all the other nannies that the twins she gave birth to keep disappearing. And Agatha somehow resurrected during this time. I'm forgetting how she was resurrected, but Agatha is back. She was a nanny for the twins. And they're like, holy shit, Wanda, every time you get knocked out in battle, anytime you're not thinking about them or you turn around, the twins don't actually exist. And so it came into light that Wanda did not create this new life while she was pregnant. She actually stole two shards from Mephisto's soul and created these two humans. And this revelation made Mephisto himself appear and reclaim those two souls. And in the end, the only way to drive him away was for Agatha to erase the knowledge of the twins from Wanda's mind, and thus, the connection to Mephisto. So this, we're gonna jump ahead to Young Avengers, which Young Avengers comes out in spring of 2005. So spring of 2005, April, Young Avengers, and we have Billy, who goes by the name of Asgardian on the team. And Billy is implied to be of Asgardian ascent, right? He has like the wings that Thor typically has, like that helmet, which I love that design. I love the winged helmet, and sort of like a wooden staff that he summons lightning initially for those first few issues. Before we even know more about Billy, we're sort of led to believe that he's Asgardian. Same with Hulkling. We think he's of Hulk descent, right? Same with Iron Lad. We think he's of Iron Man descent. And again, he is not, he's Kang the Conqueror. He's tied to Kang the Conqueror, Iron Lad. Wiccan is tied to Wanda and Vision, and Hulkling is tied to Skrull, Kree, all that drama there. So one of the things that happens during this time before any information is given to Billy, we have House of M that happens that summer. So summer 2005. So let me rephrase this because I know I've been all over the place. Young Avengers, the story kicks off in April. So the first 5 issues or so, it's just get to know the team, and we're misdirected as a reader, we're misdirected. We think that Billy is tied to the Asgardian, right? We find out in June 2005 that the Avengers are being attacked and they don't know who's attacking them. And in a flashback, we find out that the Wasp, Janet, got a little too drunk on her margaritas one day at the Avengers Mansion and tells Wanda that she thought she was pregnant with Hawkeye's baby. And she's like, can you imagine me having a kid? I mean, you had 2. You thought you had 2. And Wanda's like, wait a minute, what do you mean? And Janet's like, oops, sorry. A little too drunk and all this heat. Got to go inside. And Wanda then starts slowly remembering that she had kids, to the point that she goes to see Agatha. And she goes, Agatha, where are my children? It's actually very heartbreaking. And when you think about what happened to Wanda, that they erased the memory of her kids. I mean, it was truly cruel what they did to Wanda. So she kills Agatha and she then goes after the Avengers. And that's when, at the end of the of House of M, she's taken off to Genosha. However, during this time, a little later down the road in the publication schedule, in issue 11 of Young Avengers, Super Skrull tells Hulkling, of his origins, of how he is destined to be the Emperor, right? He also goes, oh, it's kind of ironic that Captain Marvel and Scarlet Witch were once my prisoners and now their sons are helping me. And Wiccan's like, what do you mean? I'm not the son of the Scarlet Witch. And Super Skrull's like, yeah, you are. During this time, we had found Tommy, and Billy was like, man, this guy looks identical to me except with gray hair. Something I don't think the MCU is following through with, because Joe Locke is in that play Clarkstown. Oh gosh, I'm forgetting his name. But his co-star in that is rumored to be playing Speed in Vision Quest. So they're not going to be identical twins. But in the comics, Billy and Tommy are identical twins. So in that issue of Young Avengers, they sort of find out that they are tied to the Scarlet Witch. That's where the idea is first planted in Billy's head. It's not confirmed, of course. And then we get the Young Avengers one shot where we find out that Billy one day after school was bullied, and Wanda came. He went to the Avengers mansion, and Wanda healed his wounds from being bullied. And that sort of gives him the incentive and motivation, recalling that memory, to go in search of her. And they can't find her. And, Scarlet Witch has always been Billy's favorite Avenger. It's told to us. And he's here like, she's missing right now, and perhaps she doesn't want to be found. And that's when they went all around the world looking for her from Genosha onwards, and they couldn't find her. This is in that period. I mean, a lot of people forget Wanda, after House of M, was missing until, drumroll please, Children's Crusade. Now, Children's Crusade and House of M are years apart. We're talking like 7-8 years Wanda was missing. Unheard of, right? You'd be like, what? No Scarlet Witch stories for 7-8 years? Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's working as well in the MCU. I think Elizabeth Olsen needs to get back into the MCU. We can't, following Multiverse of Madness. But anyways, it is in Children's Crusade that they're finally able to confront Wanda. She is being held prisoner of Doom. She has no memory of who she is. We're going to dive into some little particulars there. But Wanda is able to confirm directly to him, to Billy, that they are in fact related, mother and son. And we don't really get sort of the bridge that we've gotten in the past with Agatha and WandaVision of, well, wait a minute. So did Billy Kaplan exist before William Maximoff? Did his soul just go in there? Because in Agatha, it shows that he died and Billy's soul kind of went away. And then William, I'm just saying this here, went into Billy's body, right? That's how it's shown in Agatha. In the MCU history, we don't really have that level of clarity in the comic books, how he ended up and on the Upper West Side in Manhattan. If it's been explained recently, please slide into the DMs of Power of X-Men, let me know. But historically, we really don't understand. We really don't get an answer or a little bridge to that. So, another thing that happened during this time, and I think this is what I think is going to happen in the MCU going forward, is that Wanda had no memories post House of M. So one of the best stories involving Wanda, which I wish more people were aware of, was called Endangered Species. And this was a build-up to Messiah Complex. And in it, Beast is trying to figure out what happened to the X gene, because If you don't know, if you're new here, at the end of House of M, Wanda said three little words: no more mutants. And it caused the X gene in about 99% of the world's mutants to go away. The mutants were decimated. They were on the brink of extinction. And Beast starts off endangered species by saying, "My name is Hank McCoy. I'm one of the few mutants left on the planet, and I'm going to try to find out what happened to the X gene." So Beast goes through all of the things a scientist should do. There's rare opportunities that Beast actually does his job correctly. But he's here like, is this a scientific problem? Where's the X gene? Did she suppress it? Did she erase it? It's just not there. So where is it? Right? Is this a magical problem? He consults Doctor Strange. He goes, well, if this is a spell Wanda cast, surely we must be able to undo it. And Doctor Strange is like, bro, Dr. McCoy, absolutely not possible, because the spell Wanda weaved was so powerful, was so tight. It's in the very fabric of reality. So if we try to undo the spell, the No More Mutant spell, it's going to rip reality apart. And so during this story, and these were back issues. These were backstories in issues leading up to Messiah Complex. During this time, he's having dreams of Wanda. And he's like, I think I know where Wanda is. So he goes to this European town and he sits down, and someone sells him a clock, and the clock is ticking. And someone says to him, you should be careful. Those clocks break. And Hank looks up, and it's Wanda. And he's here like, oh, why don't you take a seat with me? And as Wanda sits down, a second cup of coffee comes. And Wanda's like, so you're a stranger who came to this town and you ordered a cup of coffee, but you ordered a second cup of coffee. It's almost like you knew I was going to be here. And Hank is like, call it a hunch. And she's here like, you should be very careful with those watches they sell you, because they're cheap and they break very quickly. Hank's like, I'm looking for a friend. And Wanda immediately cuts him off. She goes, you have the look of someone who's doing something he shouldn't do. And she goes on to say, let me tell you the story of this blind fisherman who was so upset that he couldn't see. And one day, as he was fishing, he caught a mermaid, and the mermaid granted him a wish, and he had wished for sight. And so the next morning he wakes up and his entire body is covered in eyeballs. And Hank is like, Wanda, you have a very good English accent for someone who's never left this small little European town. Are you telling me this story because you're trying to warn me of something? And Wanda looks at him and says, I'm telling you to back off. You have the look of someone who's going for a wish, who's going for answers to something he should not be questioning. The world could be a much worse place. The fisherman thought that if he got his sight back, everything would be resolved, but the world was worse. Don't go searching for answers. I'm telling you to back off. The world could be worse than it is. And Wanda looks at the clock and she goes, oh, it looks like it's broken. And she gives the watch back to Hank, and he looks at it and it's at 0 hour. And Wanda's like, now I have to go see my Aunt Agatha, of course. And Hank goes back to the mansion, defeated, looks at the clock. It's at 0 hour. And he goes, my name is Hank McCoy. I'm one of the last few mutants left on this earth, and we will be extinct. And it's so good. And that's what leads into Messiah Complex. What is learned, sadly, in Children's Crusade is that Wanda was actually a Doombot. Don't do that, because the real Wanda was with Doom. So that's sort of where we're at, kind of coming into this in terms of the origins of Billy and Wanda and Tommy. We don't have much resolution and clarity there. However, we have gotten some really great stories, because, the thing after Children's Crusade, Billy and Tommy kind of fell into obscurity until we got the rise of Emperor Hulkling. And of course they've been here and there, but they've really not had the level of spotlight that we're getting with a series. And I'm assuming this is a mini series because that's exactly what Marvel does these days. It's like 5 issues, and if it doesn't launch, they just relaunch it. Same creative team, just with a different title. I'm so tired of these like marketing gimmicks, but we're excited that we're getting this issue because hopefully this means that we're going to get more Hulkling and Wiccan in the future, more Wanda. So that's why I'm so excited for this series, because I want to see more diving into Wiccan, his powers, his origin story. I hope they really do dive deep into it. And I want to see more of the Billy and Hulkling relationship. They work so well as a couple. Give us updated Wiccan and Hulkling figures. We have not gotten Wiccan and Hulkling Marvel Legends since the Young Avengers box set in 2005. It has literally been 20 years since we've gotten a Wiccan and Hulkling figure. Please, 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 comics accurate, please. All right, Familia, let us know your thoughts on Wiccan, Witches Road. Slide into our DMs at Power of X-Men. Hit subscribe if you're listening to this on YouTube or on any podcast platforms. Leave a review. Anything you want to say, just let us know. Familia, thank you so much. You can follow us at Power of X-Men on Instagram. That's really the only platform we use. But let us know your thoughts. And Familia, we will see you later.